Do you have a problem with being too nice? And it's impacting you being the real you, and you feel like you're not being genuine, and you feel like maybe you're being a bit disrespected, or you can't say or do what you really want to do. Well, today I'm going to talk about this, having struggled with this many times in my life. And if you stay until the end, I have an extra point for you then as well. As always, if you want to connect me more on social media, you can find my links in the show notes below. So I was reflecting on this in all areas, personal and professional, right? And there's also a great book. I was recapping my notes from because I like to read my notes now and then, called No More Mr. Nice Guy by Dr. Robert Glover. And yeah, that's a lot of the book is based on the idea of how like nice guys weren't getting the women. And admittedly, that's my first, got it years and years back. But it's also got some good life lessons that you can use in your situations, in different situations in your life, right? Whatever gender you identify as, I believe, or age you are, all right, or wherever you are. So I think there's some really fundamentals. Now, one thing I've learned from me, and I've talked about this before, is there is a difference between kindness and being nice. Kindness is coming genuinely from the heart, looking out for the best for yourself and or someone else, right? Nice is when it's usually driven by fear. It's usually driven by, I don't want to be like rejected. I don't want someone to say something bad. So therefore I'm just going to be like nice and then hide away who I am really. They're two different things in my view. Nice, like kindness is great, but niceness is often, even though we perceive it as nice, as you're a good person, often how many times have you been nice and you felt like you were a pushover or you weren't being your genuine self, right? So I've been there many times in my life. Right? I've like, whether that was in the dating world, which is a very common one, whether it was in the workplace, well, very common, not probably most common one for me. I was just like being like, couldn't ask people for favors, couldn't challenge people, didn't want to speak up. So I've definitely been there, and it definitely held me back until I learned to work through it. Now, does that mean, I used to think you'd have to go to the extreme. I thought it meant I had to be horrible to everyone, treat everyone like dirt, ignore the girl or whatever, or like just be rude to people and aggressive in the workplace, like with how I speak up. No, it doesn't mean you need to go to that extreme. That's the other side extreme. There is a balance of how you can do this, and I want to dive into a few points in terms of being a good-hearted human being, but also not being a pushover. Being good, but also loving yourself first, so that you can be the good example. And maybe that's frustrating you by just being too nice. So here's a few points. And again, if you listen to me and don't do anything about it, it's not going to change. You don't have to do something massive. You can just start with one small thing you can do every single day. An activity, a repeated action. So the first one is be more of you, right? Understand who you are. When do you feel the most alive? What do you love? And if you've lost that a little bit, maybe sit down with yourself, take some time out and really think about that for a day or two, right? What really lights you up? What makes you feel good? Not what makes what someone else says should make you feel good, or what you believe conditioned is. Like someone's like, oh, you be an amazing doctor. You have no intention to be a doctor. You're like, oh, really? Thank you. No, that's really good. I'll probably go for that. No, that's not you. That's a random example, right? So be more of you, understand who you are. The second thing I've noticed is when we're being too nice, it's often we're changing in the fear of rejection, right? Now, we can actually learn. I've met some not so great people on this planet, right, who are just a bit rude and arrogant. I would not say ever model that. No, I like to respect human beings and be good to human beings. There is a certain thing though you can note from them, that they're willing to push through the fear of rejection. That they've probably done this so many times that it's almost very minimal to them. So when fear of rejection is coming up for you, just feel into it. Maybe not in the moment because you're busy, you're in a conversation and stuff, but feel into it as soon as you can after the incident, because the more you feel into it, the more you're going to be able to work through it. And of course, take small actions alongside that. So on the second point, but that are going to allow you to move through the fear of rejection, whether it's asking a question, whether it's making a video on social media, whatever it is for you, that small step. And again, like I was speaking to someone the other day, and so many people say I've got the fear of public speaking, and that's a very common one. And in all honesty, this would be my view for it, because it's something I've worked through, and people don't like the answer. You just actually got to do it. I think you got to do all this hypnosis, all this deep meditation, this deep psychological work. It's a bit like socializing with people. No, you go and socialize with more people. You're scared of dating, go on more dates, right? Like, people make it too complicated because the fears come in, right? Of course, they all got these stories of like, I can't do this because this and this. But at the end of the day, if you don't move into and then feel into that rejection and accepts it's there and then move through it anyway, it's not going to shift. I don't get concerned on what I put on social media, because I like to be to the point and from the heart, right? And I put a lot of views on these podcasts, right? That's because I've worked through this again and again and again and again. The more you can do it, the more you're going to feel into it, right? And the person who's too nice has just not felt into it. They've not faced into the fear of rejection enough, right? Now and then there are things that I'm fearful of. Like, I'm a human being, right? At the end of the day, I had to ask someone a question that I was nervous about earlier, right? Because it was a tricky conversation. I leaned into it because I want to be an example, right? It felt uncomfortable. I did it, right? The third thing is be open with any shame you experience, because often, like, shame is associated as a very low level of consciousness. If you ever, in fact, the lowest, I do believe, in the map of consciousness created by David Hawkins. Definitely read the book, The Power of Now, because it's got a really good foundation and understanding for this. So shame is something that I think most, if not all, human beings I've ever met have not openly talked about, but have shared there's some kind of level of it. If you do not bring these things, that your insecurities and your worries, you don't have to bring it to like the public or anything like that, but don't bringing it just to the front of your own knowledge and being honest with yourself, it's just going to stay lingering in the back, and it's going to impact your behavior. So if you've got like some kind of shame about yourself and you feel like you can't be the real you, that's going to make you feel like you've got to be nice to please everyone. People pleasing is obviously a big one in being nice. And you're not going to be the real you. So if you can bring shame to the front, that's really going to make a difference as well. And then just be willing to lean into it. Now, I got a final point, which kind of leads on from those, but I just want to mention again that if you want to connect with me more on social media, you can find my links in the show notes below. So my final one, to kind of wrap that up really, is just take some time on noting down what are the things, like, through your days, just keep a log on your phone that like really you may be getting scared around, and that's totally cool. It's about leaning into it. You're getting that fear of rejection, maybe feeling a little bit of guilt or shame or uncomfortable feelings about. And then I'd invite you at least once a week to just dive into that a bit deeper, understand where it's coming from. And for me, one of the big ones in my life has been the fear of abandonment, because I lost a lot of people when I was younger. I remember having to go, being away from people I love for a little bit, and yeah, just the fear of abandonment was a big one for me. And when I was able to get honest with that and understand that, and not use it as a story, by the way, to go out there and socialize and work, progress in my career, when I started to realize that, it really helped me. So getting honest with yourself deep down what's going on. And again, don't try and figure out every single why in your life, because you'll be going until the day you die, basically. Because if we try and figure out why every little thing happened in our life, all that kind of thing, go on for ages. But just take some time to be a little bit honest with yourself. What are these deep like wounds within me? Because when you can do that, you can bring them to light, and therefore you're able to understand them, feel into them, and take the action required as well to face through some of these insecurities that are making you maybe too nice and are not allowing you to be the true you. So I appreciate you for being here, and remember to lead with your heart and not with fear.